Have you ever wondered why the vast majority of Igbos are Christians and why there has been ethno-religious tensions and conflicts between Igbos of southeastern Nigeria and Hausa Fulanis of the north? Or why Igbos have been periodically violently attacked in some parts of northern Nigeria? This is the story of how religion, ethnicity, and power shaped Nigeria's most tragic civil war and continues to affect Nigeria even today. We'll be looking at 4 key periods in Igbo-Northern Nigeria relation: the colonial period from 1900 to 1960, early independence until the Civil War in 1967, the Civil War itself, and post-war Nigeria up until 1990s. Part 1. Colonial period from 1900 to 1960. When the British colonized Nigeria at the turn of the 20th century, they inherited a region where Islam had been the dominant religion in the north for several centuries, and Christianity had taken root among certain ethnic groups in the south like the Igbos. Rather than impose direct rule, the British favored indirect rule through northern Muslim sultanates and emirs, allowing them to maintain some semblance of local authority. This arrangement suited the British colonial project as it minimized the need for costly and time-consuming efforts to administer far-flung regions with diverse peoples. It also helped them keep Christian missions out of most parts of the north. But it allowed long-standing tensions between Muslim Hausa Fulani rulers and non-Muslim Igbos to fester and eventually explode. The Igbos, known for their entrepreneurial spirit and exposure to European ideas through trading, began migrating to the north in large numbers. They often faced discrimination and resentment from some indigenous Hausa Fulani Muslims. By the 1940s to 1950s, Igbos dominated commerce, clerical jobs, and education in many northern cities like Kano, Kaduna, Jos, and Maiduguri. This economic and social mobility only fueled resentment, envy, and suspicion among some elites of the north. Some northern elites saw Igbos as outsiders encroaching on their land and way of life. They felt Igbos were deliberately trying to change the religious composition of the north. Part 2. Early independence from 1960 to 1966. After Nigeria gained independence in 1960, Igbo politicians, traders, and intellectuals continued to advocate for a united Nigeria. However, many northern elites remained wary of Igbo influence and their growing socio-political power. In the First Republic, the Northern People's Congress (NPC) dominated the region with its Muslim leaders like Prime Minister Tafawa Balewa and Premier Ahmadu Bello. Some northern elites used their influence to advance their interests and what they claimed to be the interest of northern Nigeria. They claimed the measures are necessary to defend the north against the perceived socio-economic threats posed by the Igbos. Others viewed them as a way to marginalize Igbos living in the north and prevent them from gaining political power. In January 1966, a group of military officers led a coup that overthrew the government, killed Prime Minister Balewa and several top northern and southwestern political leaders. This plunged Nigeria into chaos. The coup was not an Igbo plot. Northern and western elites came to see it as an Igbo plot against them because most of the political leaders that fell were from the north and west, with no Igbo political leader affected. Within months, mobs in Kano, Kaduna, Zaria, and some parts of western Nigeria carried out violent attacks against Igbos living in their space, killing tens of thousands. Many lost their lives simply because they were Igbos. Survivors fled en masse to the relatively safe southeast, which is their homeland, fueling the push for the secession of Biafra. While the violent attacks did not immediately lead to war, they created the atmosphere of distrust and solidified the determination of both sides to defend their respective religions and ethnicities. This would have major consequences in the years to come. Part 3. The Nigerian Civil War from 1967 to 1970. The Republic of Biafra was proclaimed in 1967 with the aim of creating sovereign states for the Igbo people. Igbos generally identified themselves as Nigerians, and many had close ties with people of other ethnicities and religions. So when the Civil War broke out, it caused immense suffering for all involved. While the war is often remembered as one between two Nigerian ethnic groups, in reality, it was fought between two Nigerian states, Nigeria and Biafra. The war was devastating for both sides and resulted in hundreds of thousands of casualties. In addition to those killed in battle, many Igbos, especially kids, died from starvation and disease as a result of the blockade imposed by the Nigerian federal government on Biafra. The war ended in 1970 when Biafran leaders surrendered and the region was reintegrated into Nigeria. The war led to profound changes in Nigeria, including a decline in ethnic and religious tension as millions of Nigerians fled their homes and resettled elsewhere. This led to ethnic and religious mixing across the country. Part 4. Post-war Nigeria, 1970s to 1990s. In the aftermath of Nigerian Civil War, Igbo migrants gradually returned to northern cities like Kano, Kaduna, and Jos to rebuild their lives and resume their roles in trade and commerce. However, religious riots periodically broke out in the north, often targeting Igbo as symbols of foreign influence and disloyalty to the north. The most deadly outbreak occurred in Kano in 1980 and 1987, as well as in Kaduna in 1980 and 1991. Hundreds of Igbo Christians were killed and their churches and businesses were destroyed. Despite these setbacks, Igbo traders continued to return to the northern cities to pursue business opportunities. They revitalized markets, reopened shops, and continued to dominate long-distance trade networks. Their presence remained a source of tension, though, as many northerners continued to resent their influence and blamed them for religious and ethnic problems. Some northern Islamic clerics and political leaders regularly denounced Igbos as enemies of the north and called for their expulsion from northern Nigeria. When inter-religious violence erupted in 1980 and 1987 in Kano, some blamed Igbos for trying to convert Muslims to Christianity and corrupting the youth. None of these accusations were true, but they reflect the deep-seated suspicion and prejudices that continued to circulate in northern Nigeria. The cycle of violence repeated itself again in 1991 and 1994, culminating in the deadly religious riots in Kano. Northern mobs attacked Igbo neighborhoods, killing dozens and destroying properties worth millions. Similar clashes occurred in Zaria in 1992 and 1994, when Muslim fundamentalists clashed with police over the right to hold religious processions. The violence was spread to Kaduna in 1997, where hundreds were killed and thousands more were displaced. Again, the target was mainly Igbo Christians. The history of Igbos and Muslims in northern Nigeria reveals a complex interplay of factors that shaped their relationship from the colonial period until the late 20th century. From centuries of peaceful trading contacts to the introduction of indirect rule and the growth of missionary activity, each era left its own legacy of mistrust and tension. As we've seen during the colonial period, Hausa Fulani states like Kano and Katsina had periodic attacks on Igbos living within their borders. Following the independence, religious tensions continued to escalate, culminating in the pogroms of 1966 and ultimately the Civil War. Although the war ended in 1970, the underlying issues that caused it remain unresolved. Igbo traders continued to face hostility in northern cities like Kano and Kaduna, leading to periodic riots and killings. Despite the tragic events of the past, Nigeria has made significant progress towards peace and stability. Since the end of the military rule in 1999, the country has held several peaceful elections and continues to grow economically. However, religious and ethnic tensions still persist, particularly in the northern states. And some Igbos still avoid living in some parts of the north for fear of persecution. Overall, the history of Igbos and Hausa Fulanis of northern Nigeria is a cautionary tale about the dangers of religious intolerance, ethnic prejudice, and political opportunism. It is also a testament to the resilience and determination of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable suffering. Perhaps, as Nigeria continues to grow and change in the 21st century, future generations can learn from the mistakes of the past and build a more tolerant, inclusive, and peaceful society for all. There is substantial evidence that several Nigerian media, both legacy outlets and social media platforms, have repeatedly used coordinated frames and messaging that cast Igbo people, Igbo political movements, Igbo-led causes in a negative, delegitimizing light. Now, here's how the coordination happens. Number 1. Elite-driven agenda. Political actors and media owners with partisan interests push talking points into friendly outlets because many Nigerian newspapers, TV stations, and popular blogs are owned or influenced by political figures. Similar narratives appear across channels, same headlines, same emphasis, and on particular incidents. Number 2, 2023 general elections and the coverage as regards to Mr. Peter Obi. Content analysis show differential framing of candidates and identity politics, where coverage sometimes slid into ethnicizing politics and casting Igbo voters or supporters as monolithic bloc, which fed broader anti-Igbo narratives that it is an Igbo candidate, that Mr. Peter Obi is an Igbo candidate. So this is the propaganda that they also spread during that time. And they are still spreading it in anticipation for the 2027 general election. Now, during the elections, you see political narratives across newspapers in Nigeria and media houses. The Igbo candidate is only for the East, and Obi presidency will divide Nigeria. That is the propaganda that they were always spreading. Now, media and cultural marginalization of the Igbos. Stereotypes. Igbos are often painted as excessively materialistic, untrustworthy, or always seeking succession. That is the propaganda. Then, several Nigerian media outlets are owned by some Yoruba or Northern elites. They recycle narratives that depict Igbo causes like IPOB, MASOB as criminal or terrorist organizations. Now, even knowing full well that there is the legitimate movement or for self-determination, and there's also the violent ones. We are not making any argument for anybody that is practicing violence or trying to use violence to break away from Nigeria. We are talking about the grouping, the general grouping of all as criminals, which is wrong. So guys, if you've been able to stay to the end of this video, thank you so much. Leave your thoughts in the comment section, like the video, subscribe to this channel if you haven't, and I will see you next time.